Howdy and welcome back to the podcast. Today we have the Jennifer Thompson. I am so excited because I've been able to see you lift over a long period of time now, and to be able to get to talk to you is really fun. And for those that don't know, Jen has a lot of experience in the powerlifting space, and she's going to tell us a little bit about that. And I'm also interested in learning just how you got started and all those good things. So thank you for taking the time to be here and on this Friday.
Well, yeah, it's Friday, but
Oops.
I don't know.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you inviting me to be on.
So Jen, tell me a little bit. How'd you get started in the world of powerlifting?
Oh, well, it was quite a while ago. I don't know the age of your podcast listeners, but some of them probably weren't born when I started. I got started, my very first meet was 1999. Um, I got started just in college. In high school, I was a long distance runner. And then when I was in college, I was roommates with a few other people, and one of my roommates loved to lift weights, and he moved his weight set into like our rental house. So instead of running, they convinced me to start lifting weights with them, which at that time, you still didn't see a lot of women in the free weight room. So I was a little hesitant at first, but then once I got down there, I started really enjoying it. And then, because we would have, I don't know, 6 or 7 people down there every training session, just college friends. And I started to get as strong as some of them. I was the only girl. So I was like, oh, this is pretty cool.
So some good way to see some good quick benefit, and did it help your track experience as well?
Well, I was just by that point in college, I was just running to stay in shape. I would do some road races with my dad. My dad was a big runner, so it was kind of something that we could do together, which I enjoyed, but I didn't really love running that much. I just more liked the competition and just that it was a healthy lifestyle. So then when I found weight training, it was way more fun than running miles at a time. And so I just found that I enjoyed it more. I was a very skinny, stick-like girl. I didn't have a ton of self-esteem. So, of course, that did worlds of good for me being in the weight room. I got shoulders and pecs, and some biceps. And then, as I got stronger, I feel like I mentally got stronger as well and got more confident in myself. So, it was a win-win.
Isn't that the best part about this sport or this field? Like I think that your physical body is kind of maybe what changes first, and then your mental kind of just follows. You're like, man, I am starting to feel good, look good, and that saying, if you look good, you feel good. It changes your life. It's the most amazing thing.
Yeah, I think too, like once, for me, I started lifting weights that I would never have even guessed in my wildest dreams, that I could do even back then. And I think for some, it's like, if I can do that, then surely I can do this. So I think it just translates into other areas of your life. I have a high school powerlifting club that I do with some kids, and it's from the start of the year to the end, it's just unbelievable how they flourish, not just physically, I would say more mentally than anything.
I used to coach a kids camp, and it was one of my favorite things to start seeing the kiddos have like this energy that around the like, oh, can we go and do some like biceps today, or can we go and like they were a kid, like we weren't, we had ages like 6 to 11. So at the end of my stint with them, we started doing a little bit like more deadlifting and little, like benches with the dumbbells and with like a training bar, and they were so excited to get in there, and it kind of reminded me of when I first started, and the community that you build, like they all started like helping each other and adding
Hmm.
like these 2.5 pound plates. So then they put like little plates on, or like they help them get them off and get them on. And it's like that team building, that interpersonal skill that they're building is adjacent to also the mental health thing, the physical health. Like it's just it's a beautiful place to be, and I think what you're doing is really cool, and you're changing these kids' lives. It's amazing. I love it.
I feel like it gives me so much, like in return. And it's like you say, they develop their own little community. It's usually kids that like don't necessarily have a sport they're skilled at or somewhere they fit in, but they want to be athletic. So, and anyone can do it. So it's great. And then you see them, like you were saying, they're cheering each other on. They've created this very motivational environment that they live in, and it's almost like their little group, and they love it. Every day at school, they're like, "Do we have powerlifting club today? We got club today." And the first thing in the morning, they're excited about being able to come in the afternoon. So even if I'm tired at the end of the day, just knowing how stoked they are to be there, it motivates me to finish up my day with them because they're just so wonderful.
So when did you start coaching?
Gosh, I sort of just fell into it. I think I didn't do it for a really long time, because I don't really have like a background in, I don't have a degree in like sports science or kinesiology or whatever. All I really have is just loads of experience.
Wait,
So,
oh,
um,
okay.
yeah. So we didn't even really have a weight room at my high school that I've taught at for, I don't know, like 16 years now. I went to, there's a kind of a famous video where I went to Liberty University football team, and I bench pressed with the team. But one of the reasons I went was they told me if I came, I could have all their old equipment because they re-outfitted their weight room. So
Oh,
I
wow, that's
actually went up there with a U-Haul and was able to get a bunch of racks and plates and stuff. And so I was able to build, even now, our weight room is about 5 racks. It's nothing like expansive and high end, but A7's helped me furnish like the belts and the wraps and all that sort of stuff. So it's enough to power lift. We can fit about 18 people in there at one time. Um,
you.
but so once I was able to get some equipment, and then I said, "Does anyone want to show up for this?" They showed up in huge amounts. So I mean, really have been doing it for probably about 10 years now. I started coaching this club. I've always coached like, our training partners, my husband. And then just the last 5 years, I've been assistant coach for Midland University at Collegiate Nationals.
You're you don't need a degree to like you've just put in so much time and so much work that like the input that you give if you are working with these kids, they're getting the highest quality of education, right? Like I don't think there's anything better than the practical experience for the thing that you're teaching, right? And what better person than the person that's been to worlds as many times, right? Who not only has like, you're very well known for the bench, but also at the same like you also obviously you can't get there with only a good bench, right? You have to know the other two movements.
Yeah, I have 4 world titles in powerlifting, so it's not all just the bench, even though that's sort of my bread and butter.
At what point did you realize the bench was the jam?
Well, it's just like I think it's just the year I started training, it was the 90s, and everything was your how much do you bench determined how strong you are, in any bro gym.
Yeah.
So when I first started training, with all these guys, I mean, it really like legs was like an afterthought slash accessory. It was all about like the bench press, and we were doing like just obscene workouts that are like we look back on them now, we're like that was so stupid, you know. Trying to do like the whole body in 2 days, and the workouts were like 4 hours, and we could never actually finish it for too many weeks in a row because we were just so overtrained and doing way too much. But it just really was all about like your to show how strong you were was how much you mentioned. I think too, like as a female, we're not born with strong upper bodies. Like I said, I was a runner in high school, did cross country and track, but that's where I saw huge gains in the beginning was any upper body exercise because I was just a little skinny girl and I never really did much with that. So I think I enjoyed it a ton because I just, saw those big, huge gains the more I worked out. So it just kind of was infectious.
It's oddly addictive, right? It's just the
Yes.
yeah. Once you start seeing little bits here and there, you just want to keep it rolling. Um, and so, what was your first competition?
First competition, it was 1999. That was my first one. It was a Detroit Rock City competition with USA Powerlifting. Back then, the internet was around, but it wasn't like it is now. Like you still had to wait like a minute for a page to upload, so really we had this magazine called Powerlifting USA. It wasn't attached to the organization at all. It was Mike Lambert's magazine. You would just go to the back of it. People would advertise their meets in the back. You would fill out an entry fee and mail it in. It was no like technology for that. So when I married one of the guys that got me into lifting, we ended up getting married. And on our honeymoon, we were in Venice Beach, California. We saw a bench press competition out on Muscle Beach. And I
Oh,
was
it's
like, oh, I can do that. So we started talking to some of the lifters, and they were like, yeah, you should do this, and this is how you find this information. And so, almost like a year later, I did my very first um, competition, which, was squat, bench, deadlift, and it was all equipment back then. There was no raw powerlifting at all. But I was because I didn't know what equipment was. I couldn't figure out why these people were walking around like, zombies with their arms out and like trying to wiggle in these suits and stuff. I was like, what is going on here? Um, so I think it was horrible. I almost bombed out in the squat with 185 pounds.
nice. Okay. What was the reason for? Is it was it depth?
Well, the first one was depth. Um, the second one, I tried to go lower and I fell into the spotter behind me.
Oh no.
And then the third one I got, but I honestly just think they were being very nice. Like
It's
I
her.
think they just didn't want to. Yeah, I think they were giving me like this is her first one. Don't let her bomb out. And I think I benched 215.
First time benching. I mean, that's still pretty solid.
That was pretty good. And then
Yeah.
I learned how to deadlift like the week of, and I think I deadlifted 300, which I was pretty excited about. I had no idea what like my strength was for that. And I had cut weight down to the 132s because I was just a little bit above that. So it was my first time, fitting in a weight class also. So it was a good experience. I met a coach there. His name was CJ Batten. He was an old time coach, and he was kind of just he's like, you got to go to nationals. Like this is the American record. This is the most people anyone's benched this year yet. Like.
Wow.
Yeah. So I did, and it took me a few years to kind of get it down, but eventually I did.
So, what do you mean by get it down? Because I mean, if you're setting American records your first meet, then what do you
Oh.
consider getting it down?
Well, I went to my first nationals, like I was a complete emotional wreck. Like my meat nerves and my mental game was horrible. Like I lifted worse in the meet than I ever have in the gym. I was incredibly nervous. I spent most of the time in the bathroom. I think I ended up taking second place. And it was just a bench only meet too.
Nice. Okay.
But, second place at your first nationals, I guess, isn't too horrible. But I don't even know that there was more than two of us in the weight class, to be honest with you.
Fair, fair. Different, different size of the sport.
Oh, yeah, we were lucky to get like two flights of women, like of total women. We were lucky just to get two flights back then. It just wasn't as popular as it is today.
What I mean, in comparison to the presence of I mean, it's definitely, I would say, especially then, a much more male-dominated sport.
Oh,
Was
yeah.
it intimidating, like stepping up into that space? But you'd already been training with a bunch of dudes, so it was kind
Yeah.
of it was just training again, right?
Yeah, I think that the hardest part was just like the expectation. I didn't want to travel there and let anyone down or have to say I didn't do what I was, what I should have done, or I was just afraid of letting people down, honestly, or having to go back and say, yeah, I didn't win or I didn't, that's hard to do, um, as an athlete if there's high expectations, which it was only the expectations of myself and my friends, but even then it still tore me up, you know?
Everybody else was like, "Man, she made it to nationals in her first year of competing. All right,
Yeah,
this is
they were like,
going."
who is this girl? Because like, it kind of had been the same people, the same type athletes showing up all the time, and then I showed up, and they were like, who is this girl?
And was it inviting by the time you got there? Was that like group of women inviting and like willing to help or teach?
No.
Oh,
Not back then. It is now. I want to say that like we've come a long way, and I really feel like we have this amazing community of women that help each other out. I'm very proud of that. But back then it was a little more cutthroat nasty.
that is unfortunate, but I feel like it's definitely changed for everybody in
A
the
hundred
space.
percent. I can definitely tell you, like that was just like the first maybe 2 or 3 years. And definitely as the sport started growing, it was, and I honestly think it was more like just the bench press community. Because when I did the three lift, it was a little bit better, as far as the way the women treated the newcomers, I guess I'd say. But, and it wasn't horrible, but they just weren't inviting. They weren't like, well, yeah, they were just not inviting. I'm just gonna say that.
That's
But now it's amazing. Like even when we're back there, like Raw Nationals, and we're just battling for the top three spots. I mean, we're back there joking with each other and cutting other up and like cheering each other on. Like it's an amazingly positive, especially if you go into the Masters too. Like that's a super welcoming, supportive group too. So it's definitely not like that anymore.
I've never gotten the opportunity to be behind with a masters group, but just and I never really had the experience of people like being maybe not the most inviting. I was very lucky to have the entire community was always super inviting, which I think was part of the reason I loved the sport so much. You walked around, there's all these like massive people that are lifting this insane weight, and then you talk to him and just asking him questions. Like Preston Turner was the person that one of the first people that I had talked to, and just the most inviting. It's like, oh, this is all the information. This is how you get there, and let me know if you need any help. And it was
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, this is you can be nice in a sport and it's okay. Yeah, this is the
Oh
sport I
yeah.
want to be in. You know.
Well, I think we love it. Like, it's part of us, it's part of who we are, and we're all excited to talk about it. Like, even when you usually will go up like to the biggest names in our sport, they're usually happy to chat about stuff just because it's what we all love.
It is. I probably have seen the biggest. I don't know, turnout maybe is not the right word, but like the most amount of people that are willing to talk about and come on and talk about sports and talk about powerlifting has been from this community. And it didn't matter if it was somebody on the USAPL side or the IPF side. It was like it's just it's something that is so simple. It's the squat, the bench, and the deadlift, but then there's so much that goes into that behind the scenes where you're training with these group of people, the struggle that life has and like the dedication you have to continue to do the sport. It's so simple but then so complex, and only other powerlifters really understand, right? And it's but the sport is growing so much, and I think you have a lot to do with that, maybe in I think in general, but then also with just imagine those younger girls that may have been coming in that weren't treated well, and if they were treated well, if you were treated well, then like what that have perpetuated the continuation and the growth of that sport, and now you get to play a role in that. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah. It's pretty neat. I think in powerlifting, like the women's side is getting fairly close to where I think it's going to be 50-50, men and women in the near future. It's 60-40 about or a little more right now. I don't think we're too far off, but I think, I didn't start really powerlifting until I was 27. But now you're seeing girls start in high school, and then to see like the strength that they're able to possess starting training at that age is crazy. Even the guys too, though. Like everyone, the sport is they're starting younger. High school nationals is big. There's much more stuff going on, even in the individual local states. People are getting into the sport at a much younger age. So it's very exciting to see like where their training and their strength can go when you start way earlier than my age group now, those years and there's so much more information accessible to them, YouTube coaches, things like that. And I think for women in general, it's given us a opportunity for positive body image. You don't have to be this skinny little model type woman. We like thick thighs, and big biceps and broad shoulders and all those unconventional assets can be celebrated for women, which is more of the general population anyway. So I think that stuff's all good.
I think that's a huge point, and it seems like that more women are like excited to post about those things. Like how many posts I'm scrolling through Instagram, and I feel like, and maybe because mainly more, there's probably more women posting on Instagram than maybe men. I don't know that for a fact, but a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing is all these girls just lift like squatting massive weights, like
Hmm.
400-pound squats consistently, and like
Yeah.
300-pound benches consistently, deadlifts that are insane. It's and being proud of what that does to the body, and I think it's helping understand what nutrition does, and what, the old thing was always, oh, I can't lift weights, I'm going to get big, and I don't want to get too big. And it's like, it makes you more toned, and you want tone, so we should do this thing. You don't have to get to the point where we're benching as much as Jen, but even if you're benching, like, it's gonna have longer lasting effects, like for osteoporosis, right? Like there's a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
benefit to it, and it helps out a lot in that space.
Yeah, I will say, like on the benching side for the women, when I first started, it's always been less strength for me, but women wouldn't even bench their body weight. Like that was tough. And now, like, it's a no-brainer to see women bench 200 pounds plus. Like it happens a lot. And I think that's pretty awesome that we've excelled in the upper body area also. We're not being held back by like, just I have strong legs and I don't have a strong upper body. Really are seeing that the bench press is becoming a strength for many of them also, which before it used to be just kind of the rest between the squat and the deadlift. It's like, oh, lay down, take a little rest before we get to the real part, which is the deadlifts. But I mean, I've always maintained that, your weakness is where you can make huge gains, in your total. So if you would put as much effort into your weakness as you do into your strength of the thing that you like to do, well, that's just going to give you huge gains. So you are starting to see that happen a lot more. The women are benching like double body weight type stuff now on the regular, which is pretty awesome.
And just because we're on the topic of bench, I'm going to continue. At, was there certain points in either a technical fault, or your training style, or maybe some biomechanical things that you had seen a plateau with, and had like, how do I figure this out, and maybe some issues in that, the technique or the muscular portion of the movement?
Honestly, no.
Like,
Um, I mean, at this rate, I've been doing it for 20 plus years, so I'm happy if I just make a few pounds gain on my bench each competition, even if I gain 2 or 3 pounds, like I'm excited about it because it's going up, Um, in the beginning, obviously, it was way bigger. But I honestly think it's our programming, the way we have it set up, and people don't like to hear this, but you got to figure out what works for you and your lifestyle and in your body type and things like that. But we've found programming that we keep evolving, but the bones of it's the same because the bones work. And so it's, for our training that we do, it's just constantly putting us in a stronger place at the end than we did the previous. So I've never not kept getting stronger other than, a couple of injuries. I had hip surgery and um, pulled obturator muscle that I've had to overcome. But other than that, I think too, though, with the bench, I've always had a really good setup. And I think if you set up correctly, that leads to no injuries. Everyone always asks me what kind of shoulder problems I have, and I've never had any, knock on wood. But I think that just the setup of the bench press and, the main part being rolling your shoulders down and back and trying to limit the use of your shoulders in the bench as much as possible. And then building up the strength in the pecs has been what's made me as strong as I am, you know, and that exercise
So how many times per week are you benching?
once.
Once.
Yeah.
No
Well,
way.
I bench once a week. Now we do have like an accessory day where I'll do some variations. So like I have a 1 day dedicated to the bench, which is usually like a combination of squat, incline, decline, presses, stuff like that. And then we have a what we call our tricep shoulder day, which is usually like some pin presses or block presses, some close grip, and some triceps and shoulders. So I mean, you probably technically say two, but I'm only flat bench pressing fully once a week.
And what does the volume look like for the other two movements as well?
It's usually I almost do everything with sets of five. 5 reps is the key.
It is. Yeah, that is insane. I mean, it's fun. I mean, it's just so simple. But I mean, hey, what you're doing
It,
is
it,
working.
yeah, I always feel like, I'm an educator. I've been teaching for 27 years now. And in education, they're always coming out with the best way to teach math now, or we're going to teach reading this way now, or we're going to start doing this now. And it's always the original stuff that worked better. And we screw up the kids by trying all these new methods all the time that never end up working. We go back to what worked in the first place. And I sort of feel the same way about powerlifting. We call our training, we dubbed it CLUE, cyclical linear undulating um, programming. We kind of made up our own sort of name for it, but it really is. It's a lot of linear progression in a cyclical way where we're just constantly building up to a higher amount of weight each week. And then we kind of have a rule that if we fail, you have to drop back, which is kind of like a deload, but it's like a deloading by exercise, not deloading by the week. So we're constantly, because I kind of feel again with the teaching, sometimes like you're doing great in math, but then your English starts to fall behind, or you're killing it in science and reading, but then math starts to give a little bit. It's hard to keep them all at the top level at the same time. And I sort of feel that way with exercises. So if I'm killing it in the bench, I don't want to deload because it's time for a deload. But if my squat needs a deload, I'm just going to deload the squat. So that's kind of been our philosophy for a long time, and it's worked.
That definitely makes sense. One more time, it's called Clue. And what is it? What
But
what do you?
we made it up. It's not an actual thing. Just know that you can't look this up online. We called it cyclical linear undulating method.
And so, are you? Why is it undulating if it's maybe I don't know if this makes sense, but so I understand. So cyclical and linear. So every, let's say,
Mhm.
8 weeks, you're running through that same kind of rep scheme, right?
Yeah,
And then undulating, is it changing? Is it undulating per day throughout the week?
it's per exercise.
Per exercise? Okay, it's per exercise.
Undulating per exercise. So if you get to an exercise where, like, let's say, with our accessory stuff, we're usually doing reps of 8. So, you're doing a weight and you can't get eights, then it's time to undulate, drop back. And usually what happens is when you get stuck somewhere, most of the time it's because you've lost your speed. So you've increased your mass over time, and then eventually you slow down enough that you don't have enough force to continue pressing that weight out or whatever it is you're doing with it. So the idea is you deload that exercise down a bit, and then you can get your speed back. Once you get your speed back, then you go past where you got stuck before and you get stuck a little higher this time. And then you drop back and go forward past that and get stuck in a little higher place again, then go back. So it's kind of like this.
It sounds like like a mentally non-stressful environment.
It 100% is. There's no RPEs. I hate that stuff. Like I don't like that. I like just very black and white. We have steadfast rules that we apply to it, and always record, reflect, back on things, always trying to make little tweaks to this and that. I think we're on version, I don't know, like 27 of our programming, but a lot of it's the same, but we're like, oh, let's try, doing it this way. Or we felt kind of like this the last training cycle. Let's maybe drop back a set on this and maybe add in this exercise. I get pretty bored pretty easy doing the same exercises all the time. So my workouts are full of accessories and I mix them up all the time because I like to do different things.
That keeps it fun. I
It
mean,
keeps it fun. And part of it's the mental part. Like if you go in there and you're like, ugh, I got to do this again today, then odds are it's not going to be a very productive workout. So if you can do something to that to make it more exciting to you, like for deadlifts, we used to do a lot of what we call reset doubles, or just double pulls. And I eventually found that I found that stressful because I was trying to hit certain numbers. And then my form was sort of suffering. And then it was just kind of it was just mentally defeating to me. So my last one I went, I'm just going to do sets of five on the deadlift, 3 sets of five, touch and go. And I hit a PR at that meet at the end of that. And I think it was just because I came in, I wasn't stressed about my numbers. I was doing sets of five. I wasn't worried about missing. And I enjoyed it.
it's such a different way than the last couple years that I've been like trying to write my own program, but I am also I've get like overwhelmed where I'm like, man, it's so complicated. And like, I going through undergrad didn't really talk very much about it, but then during my master's we talked a lot about training programs and modalities, and so then I tried to like pull all this different stuff in, and then it became to I was like, ugh, like this is just it's overwhelming or boring, or like it's just became too much, and I kind of
Hmm.
started to and your method just seems like if you have so many other things going on in your life, then it's a good, simple but fun way to continue to move.
Hmm. Oh yeah, and like if I don't feel like doing, I mean the squat, bench, and deadlift are always in there. They have to be in there. But how you handle them, the rep schemes you do, you can always mess around with. I don't do any heavy singles on squat anymore because I've had a few injuries, and it just I worry about it. I get under the bar and I'm a mess. So I only do doubles and triples now. And it's worked just fine. And then I only do few doubles and triples and I hit the rest on the belt squat machine because it feels better on my body. But I make sure I kill it on the belt squat machine. So I think there's a lot of room to you have to figure out like what you like to do in the space and time that you have it. And it's okay to not do one particular thing. I mean, you got to get the work in, but as long as you get the work in, I mean, with our workout, I mean, we have it's high intensity. Like, there's not a day that goes by I'm not sore. And there'll be a lot of people that tell you shouldn't be like that. It's like too much. But I mean, that's what works for me. I love feeling like I know I did an awesome workout the next day because it's hard to sit down or turn the wheel on my car or whatever it is. Um, but we'll also self auto regulate. Like if I'm not recovering, if I go into a workout, I'm still sore from a few days prior, I'll skip off a few exercises or I'll drop down weight and just do high reps. Or, I mean, a lot of it is just listening to your body and making sure you get the most out of your body that day.
It is definitely having to listen to yourself, and I think that is a frustrating answer for a lot of people. It's like, well, Jen, like, what's the answer? Like, what are you doing? And it's like, well,
Right.
the answer is experience. Like, unfortunately, maybe as a coach, that's what you offer. You offer this background of experience that whenever you do see
Hmm.
somebody maybe struggling in a specific area, you know whether to to decrease load or to focus on like mechanical things, right?
Right.
That's what it's the experience ultimately is what gives you the eye to know what is the right way to go, which again it can be frustrating for some people, but that is really the answer. It
It
is
really
unique.
is. And I couldn't have told you this like my first couple years in powerlifting. Like I was still trying to figure out a lot of stuff back then. We were just trying things and seeing if it were, at the at competition, did it work out well this way? Yes, no, and then reflect and fix. And um, it is frustrating to not have like a right answer, but it's definitely not a one size fits all. I think coaches are great because they can definitely help you skip a lot of the mistakes you might make, particularly in the beginning. But everyone, has a different lifestyle and a different recovery, and you know, you got to find where it's fun and it works for you. And nobody likes that answer, but it's so true.
What do you do for? I mean, I have two different questions, and you can
Okay.
the first. I'm interested. I see you do a lot of overload training.
Hmm.
When did you start seeing the benefit of overload training, and how does it? It just you put an insane amount of weight on your back and on and in your hands. I don't know. I don't know if I've seen you do any rack pulls, but what
Oh
is?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Uh, how long you've been doing overload training, and yeah, I guess I'm gonna leave it at that.
Okay. Probably like 15 years or something like that. One of our roommates was in chiropractic school and he was studying isometrics.
Nice.
And you didn't really apply that to weightlifting back then, but he was a weightlifter. And he's like, I bet we can start applying this to our training. And we're like, yeah, let's give it a try. And so that's when we came up with, it may have been 20 years ago. I don't know. I can't remember. It's been so long now. But we started with the heavy holds on the bench. Like, let's just see what you can do as a static isometric hold because the studies showed that there was such a good return on your concentric strength if you could do an isometric hold. So, we just started with the 1 rep max. That was super easy. We came up with the goal being 15 seconds. I don't even really know why we came up with that, but it just seemed like it was long enough that you could really have to push at it for a little while. And so then we just started, going up each week that we did it. We were doing it, I think each week then. Now we do it every other week. And then we thought, well, we can start applying this to squats. We can walk out with heavy weights, same thing, do a heavy walkout. And then, with the deadlifts, we do the rack pulls or the wagon wheels. And then we started doing, like pin presses are essentially an overload, right? And block presses. And so the idea is, I mean, you're training your body to do this weight that you couldn't actually do in a full rep. But if you can train it in a partial rep, you're more apt to get there. And then the benefits are too, like after a heavy hold, everything feels pretty darn light after that weight. So for me mentally, a lot of this is mental. For me mentally, that was really good for my training because, I'll walk out with, 560 pounds doing a few reps at 330 ain't so bad. Same with the bench too. So we just, as we started applying them to our training, we were seeing such positive returns in that. And then, we have our days where we're doing full bench, full squat, full deadlift, but then there's exercises where you're working partial reps to work a particular spot of that lift, whether it's the top end, the bottom end, or the center. You have these other days where you can strengthen your weakness within that lift.
How structured are your training programs? Are they like you have these 8 movements in the day, or is it we are going to hit a general area and then you walk into the gym kind of knowing the choices you have to select in that top range that you're trying to correct, and you're like, we're going to do this one today.
Hmm. Well, I have an app. It's Thompson's Gym, that program's top app. I will give myself a little plug there. And then we actually have, I have 9 programs on there. So honestly, it depends on which program you're in. So like on our competition ready program, which means you're using it to lift in an event at the end, there's not as much choice in it. Like the rep ranges will change a little bit throughout, but you're really only getting choices on like, do you want to do skull crushers or extensions or, just the smaller muscle movements. And then we have some other programs we'll do on off, like when we're not training for an event where you would have a lot more choices of let's do this today, let's do this today, let's do what we call an escalation, which is kind of where you're starting with a lot of reps and moving down to 1 or 2 reps at the end by percentages. And or I really want to work my deadlift form today, so let's throw in an escalation workout today or things like that. So I mean, it's way more structured when you're going to competition because you got to perform. You've got to hit these numbers, and you want to be the best you can be. So you don't want to mess around with the programming it too much. But I mean, like I said, I'll do the smaller stuff just to keep things fresh and not too crazy. But then our other off programs, they have we will maybe some days we'll go and we go like, why don't we do this today? Now it's something we've created, it's a workout we've created, but we've just sort of picked it from the many that we've created. Said, oh, this sounds like fun today. Let's do this one.
I like that. What was it like developing the app? Was it hard, tough? Was it a fun endeavor?
It was fun. It was a little bit hard in trying to take what we've been working on and using for years and put it into something that anybody could use. Um, and I still think some of it probably needs to be adapted a little bit. I have a beginning powerlifting program and an advanced powerlifting program on there because definitely if you haven't done it before, the advanced ones, it's going to be asking you to make too big of jumps and probably lifting way too heavy weight for what you should be doing at the time. So um, it's hard because it's the programs were specific to me. I had to look and say, how can I make this work for everybody? So that was honestly the harder part. And then figuring out percentages. I mean, I can lift a lot of weight. I can make big jumps in my weight, but not everybody can. So it was kind of I did have like for about 3 or 4 months, I had several, I had offered it free as long as you tried it, gave me your feedback. So
Nice.
I had a lot of people on it for free, and there was lots of things that we had to fix and tweak. And when you're starting a project, things come up that you would never even have anticipated, especially with technology. So I think now it's been out a couple years now. So now I feel like we've got it fairly dialed in, but still even like, you always have to assess yourself. And if it's going too fast, you're just going to have to maybe drop back a little bit, or if it's not going fast enough, go ahead and jump forward a little bit. Um, and then I made videos for, how to do each exercise, and it was time consuming.
Uh,
But I do have like a community like that if you're on my app, it's just $29 a month, and you get invited to my private community of all my lifters that are on the app. And it's a great community. Like they post videos, and I'm not even the one that has to. I always respond to all of them, but like I've got such great people in there. They're on it in a second, saying, "Hey, I think maybe you should try this," or maybe you, let your hips fly up on that deadlift a little bit too quick, or so. That's actually kind of the fun part for me is just being part of that.
and that's definitely again the community part is definitely one of the most exciting parts of it. What was did somebody come to you like an app developer come to you?
Yeah, it's through my strength book. They used to be just a coaching platform, and then they decided to Avi Silverberg and Mike McDonald owned it out of Canada, and Mike bought Avi out of it, so that now he's just running it. And when he took it over, he really wanted it to be where athletes could have their own platforms, and their own programming, which was pretty neat. What I really love about it is like it's collecting all your data. I love the stats and analysis. Like at the end, it'll say like, you've never done this before. You hit a PR on your incline bench today, or you lifted this many reps by the end of your workout, or this much weight, or I just find all that stuff, kind of satisfying. So I
That's
do like the like data analysis aspect of it.
And do you coach your athletes through your platform? So do you have any athletes that are fault now?
No, I did a little bit of that during COVID. I just thought I'd give online coaching a try, and I find that I didn't love it. So, I offer anyone that's on my program, I offer they can message me, they can send me videos, or they can be part of the community, and I help them the best I can as they're going through my programming. So, but not like I'm not picking their programs for them each week. I'm just more of like an advisor on it whenever they need it, which actually I kind of like.
I think that sounds like the better deal than it. Online coaching is just it's tough. It's so
It's
hard to
hard.
like you're handing over this template, and like there's so much change that needs to happen day by day at times with certain athletes. Some athletes can
Hmm.
follow it and do perfectly fine. You have other athletes that that you need to help monitor and tell them when to back off. And if you don't
Right.
have, like that immediate feedback or that cue of no, chest stop right in the middle of a rep,
Yeah.
like that they make that change, ah, you miss out on
Hmm.
that.
Yeah, it's nice, I guess, like if you don't have anyone, it's a nice option. But like one of the guys I was coaching, God, he made such huge gains, and I was at the meet that he was at, and he got all of his bench presses turned down because his butt was up, and I didn't see that in the video. It's like because he had shorts on, and so I felt horrible because that was something that I missed. A, I would have probably noticed it in real life, but on a video it wasn't apparent, you know. And then I had another my athlete, and it was a master's lifter, and she went to her event and she put like something absurd, like 150 pounds on her total from her previous one. And then she said to me, God, I really thought I was going to make bigger gains with you.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, what?
150
I'm
pounds.
done. This is not for me.
That's fair. And that was that. So that was your last online training experience.
It was just like I had only I think I took 10 athletes for like a year. Like I let them do it for a year. And because it was COVID, everything was shut down. We were stuck at home anyways, and most of the people had to have home gyms, in order to be able to do it because a lot of the gyms were closed or whatever. And so I said I'm going to try it for a year because even as a teacher, we were teaching at home on the computer, So I'll try it if I was going to try it, now's the time, and I'll give it a go. And I really enjoy the seminars I do. Like I love meeting new people, and I feel like I have a great eye for helping people how to figure out things with their form and their lifts and things like that. So to me, it's instant gratification, and it's rewarding, and it's one day.
What is when do you host the seminars and what do they look like how does somebody sign up?
Usually people just ask me to come. Like in August, I'm going to MGH Fitness in Chicago. They are opening their brand new gym, and they want me to come do a bench seminar there. So I'll be there. At the end of May, this May, we have what we're calling our Iron and Stone tour in Miami, and there's a bunch of us at CrossFit Kendall in the Battle Axe gym doing like a seminar for 2 days, and that one we're doing for charity. And then there's a training group called the Wonder Women, and it's a international training group. And so there I did a seminar for them last year, and they're flying me out to LA in October to do another one this year. But it's pretty. I don't usually allow more than 20 because that's pretty much after that, like I'm just not getting to everybody. I just can't help everybody more than 20. Sometimes I'll have my husband come with me because like we're basically the same person, like as far as training and figuring stuff out. So a lot of times I'll bring him if I need help, but it's just whatever comes up. And if people will want me to come there, and if I can work it into my schedule, but I enjoy doing it. It's fun.
I want to hear about we're going to talk a little more about that after we sign off because that is an interest of mine. Man, I was going to ask you something else about the seminars. Um, did you think that you were going to get to a point where you are doing seminars? Like, at what point did you realize, oh man, like I'm gaining some traction here? What else can I do? Or is it just completely organic? Has it been goal oriented?
None of this has really been goal oriented. Like if you would have asked me 20 years ago, would I be here? I would have thought you were crazy. Um, but I think I started, it was, I don't know how many years ago, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, I started, you would see like Ray Williams put a seminar on somewhere, and I'm like, huh, he's out there doing that. And then somebody asked me to do it, and I'm like, well, yeah, let's go, you know. So really, it was just people reaching out to me is how it kind of got started. And I just was honestly just very flattered that someone would want to find me somewhere to teach their folks how to do some powerlifting. And we did do we had the Iron Sister or yeah, Iron Sisters out of Canada with Frances Manius and Kim Walford. For 2 years, we did like an all-female weekend seminars around the U.S. We did like four a year for 2 years, and then when COVID hit, we just kind of felt like that was a good stopping place.
And is it the goal to restart that, or just was that
I don't
the end
think
of that?
so. It was fun. I enjoyed it, but it just it became more of a business, and it is a lot of work. Like, you would have to find the place, and then find places for people to stay, and find the venue, and then get the signups, and then the money, and it became a more of a job, which I didn't ever want this to feel like that. So now when we do the seminars, I get my flight and room and board paid for, and then I have like a set fee for the day, and I don't do any of the business part of it. I don't want to.
That is,
It's not my knack.
I feel like there are people that they start gaining this traction, and then well, like the business side is like, well, yeah, I'm gonna start to charge and start to put myself out there and do these things. But you've stayed teaching and not dived into that world. Why is there a I forget the word, but why is there not a desire to get into that?
Because I think if I ever got there, I don't think I would love it like I do. I love teaching. Um, Nobody does teaching unless they love it because it pays so poorly, you know. But I like it. I enjoy going to work every day. And I think like you get one option, well, I believe that you get one stint in this life, maybe some people believe in reincarnation, I don't know, but I feel like you have this finite time on this earth, and it would be a shame if you didn't enjoy it, and you don't need money to enjoy it. You need to be able to do things that you enjoy doing. And so for me, spending time with my family, watching my kids play baseball or powerlift, going to my teaching my classes, seeing my students play sports, pushing myself to places I never thought I could go, traveling, meeting people. I think once, if I were, with the Iron Sisters, it got to where it was a job, and then I didn't enjoy it as much. I didn't look forward to going. So that was for me a flag to say, let it's time to retire this. And you just never know what's going to come your way in life. Like I didn't know I'd be going to Chicago in August, or Miami in May. What cool things are happening. I just got asked from Trova Trips to do like a trip with them where you would just invite people and you would go travel somewhere and do all these awesome things, so totally on board with that. That sounds like fun.
Yeah, there could be worse things. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just think it's time is precious, and I think it's easy to get overcommitted and overworked. Um, what that I've learned, especially when you're a teacher, they're always asking you to sign up and do this and do that and do this and do that and host this and do this tutor group and whatever. And at some point, you have to realize that family is really important, and then you need to dedicate time to that and to dedicate time to things that you find enjoyable. And I find giving back enjoyable. Um, so that's where I am with that. And if it, I did have someone that wanted a seminar, it was way up in Canada somewhere, and it was just the time and effort it would take to get there took way too much from my precious time. So I would have loved to do it, but it would just, it didn't, it didn't fit in well. So I didn't do it
The willingness to say no to things is,
in a nice way.
it's like I want time with my family, and like I don't think anyone's ever going to be like, "Oh, Jen, I can't believe you," right? It's like
Right.
who doesn't want that, right? We only have this X amount of time. I think you're. I agree with you. I don't know that you're right necessarily. I don't know that anybody is, I guess, right, but we have this one opportunity to make the most out of what we can do, and what I think it sounds like the family values and the giving back are on a higher priority for you, and it's cool because you're still making an impact, but with the priorities of I think what is traditionally accepted as business and money. You're
Mhm.
making you're making an insane impact with the values of family and like love, if you will, like loving what you
Yeah,
do.
I think so. I think so. And it just, I think, anytime anything comes up, I always just sort of weigh it, what's the pluses, what's the minuses? Is it worth taking time from family or school or wherever to go do this event? And sometimes the answer is yes. It would be really awesome to go do this and it would have a huge impact and it'd be great. And then sometimes it's like, no, and you have to sort of get over not wanting to hurt people's feelings. I think sometimes we don't want to hurt people's feelings, or maybe money's the driving factor of it. And I mean, some people need to do that. I mean, obviously you need money to live, but it's, I guess you have to decide at what level you're happy doing that at.
And is the level that you are at, that you are growing or it can like being at, is this it, or are you looking to add more to your plate?
Well, I would like to always, I think, make a bigger impact in my sport. I mean, to me, it's been important to put my stamp on it. And, I want when people talk about powerlifting, my name to get in there. So I'm constantly striving to improve myself as I get older, to make a positive impact on my sport. I'm the North Carolina State Chair, so we're always working on improving and, giving venues for people to lift at. I'm a referee because I feel like we need good referees out there. And if I were lifting, I would want me in the chair. I don't necessarily love doing it, but I feel like it's important to have active athletes as referees in the chair. So, that's important to me. I do that. Um, you know, so no, I don't think as a powerlifter you're ever really satisfied with things. I don't ever really want to be satisfied. I always want to be striving for more, just at still an enjoyable pace.
Fair, fair. And I think where I look at it is like, but like you have to push to be uncomfortable in the gym, right? There are times where you're gonna have to do a hard workout that sucks,
Oh
and
yeah.
maybe not the most enjoyable, but the long term goal is still the competition, right? And like being at worlds or being at nationals or being at a state meet, right? Not and everybody's in that space, but it's be willing to put yourself through maybe some uncomfortable positions in order to achieve a higher level of success, if you will, in a specific field. But that does that transfer into like that same mentality transfer into doing make like the business side of things, like and why not?
Uh, that's a hard question. I mean, I guess yes, but then that's when it becomes stressful. Because like for me, I always want to be the best at whatever I do. Like I always want to push myself. I always want to, whether it is like like I got in charge of setting up senior night for my son's baseball team, and I wanted to knock that shit out of the park, so like I'm stressed out about the pizza order. I got these kick butt flasks with their names. I wanted to outdo last year, moms like crazy. So I'm staying up at night getting all this stuff together and organizing and stuff. So, I mean, I do think like it is inside me. I think in most, not everyone's competitive, but if you're a competitive athlete, you're not usually just competitive in your sport, you're competitive in all things. Um, so yeah, there is this kind of push pull, especially with social media, with the following and the opportunities that you have. And I always feel like I am always pushing myself into to different spots, with my own podcast, the Strength Academy podcast. Um, we've asked for some big names to come in on our podcast, which is sort of scary. But what drives me is I want to be the best, and I want to have the best on there. And you can if you don't at least ask. And oddly, they usually say yes. So, you know, um, but I don't want to get like so bad that like I can't sleep at night or I'm stressed about making a certain dollar amount. To me, that's a negative. Most of the stuff I do with powerlifting doesn't have a financial number to it. It just makes me feel good to either interact with these certain people or be able to be privileged enough to go to these places and do these things and to keep pushing that. I do think like I would love to see powerlifting get as big as strongman and some of the other televised sports. I think we can get there. And to me, that's like more challenging to make ourselves so mainstream that people want us on their shows, on their talk shows, on their channels, stuff like that. So that's always, I feel like an upward, it seems like an impossible mountain, but I feel like we can keep pushing and get there.
I feel like we're on the way, Jen. I don't know.
Yeah, I do.
I don't think it's impossible at all.
I just hope I'm still like competing by the time we get there. For me, like it's been tough because like when we first started, like we were such a nothing sport. No one, I mean, I've been benching big weight for a long time. Nobody knew, because there was no social media or things like that. So for me, and we were lifting in nasty like community centers and ballrooms, so for me, like when I go to the Arnold, I lifted in 3 events and everyone's like, why would you lift in three? I'm like, do you see how awesome this is? Like, if you're going to give me 3 opportunities, I'm taking all of them to get out there and spend my time because um, so much of my career was not like that. That I feel so blessed that as powerlifting has gotten to more professional and money and people watching and this more social status, I'm just so excited that even though I'm at probably towards my end of my open career, that I just get to experience and be a part of it and still be competitive.
I think that you're already being in an outside perspective, you're already experiencing a lot of what it will like it's going to continue to grow in number, but I think that it seems like and it looks like you're already like in the uprising of the sport. Like you've got to see the high school gym meets to or the
Hmm.
high school gym venue to the Arnold and like that
Yeah.
platform, that stadium is just amazing.
It really is like I always say it's like I think it's equivalent to like if I ever got to feel like what it would be to be like a rock star that sold out like a huge stadium. I feel like it's fairly close to that, like you get on that main stage and it's just a sea of people, cheering for you and the energy is electric. But I don't think that's like our top out point. I do think there's more beyond that. We'll have to wait and see.
I think the Sheffield was a good, I think, step
Hmm.
also in the right direction. Like
Yeah.
it's it's continuously growing. And did you? I don't. Do you compete in USAPL solely?
Right now I am. I haven't competed in the IPF since COVID 2019. Um, I don't know if I will. I might. I'm not sure.
It's such
Huh.
a. I hate that that all happened. I think it makes
I
it
do
more
too.
for for athletes that are coming in, like it was so easy to like, oh, this is like the route, like this is just what you
Mhm.
do. Now it's like I have been on the outside thinking like, okay, which one do I choose? Because if I choose one, then I'm kind of restricted to the other, and I don't really
Mhm.
know like how to
It's
partake. And if you're new,
Yeah,
like I can't imagine.
it's created a big divide, which I'm really sad about. In some ways, it's been nice because USA Powerlifting was held back so much by these rules of the IPF that we couldn't do a lot of things that we wanted to do that we are doing now. So in that sense, it was a little bit of freedom where we can finally be our own person. But at the same time, it's so sad to miss that international aspect of it. And then, things like the Sheffield and, I know like the Raw Worlds this year, I think is on Eurosport. And
It's huge.
so it's sad they couldn't figure out how to work that out together because I think together that would have been pretty amazing. So I don't know. I have a little bit of mixed feelings about it. I've just been USA Powerlifting right now just because um, I'm enjoying the large events that we have. When you go to the Sheffield was great, but when you go to like a normal IPF Worlds, there's nobody there.
Yeah.
It's empty. You're like on a stage lifting with a few teammates in the audience. Like it's not. And until recently, they usually are not in nice places. Like you think, oh, I'm going to wherever, England, and then you're in the middle of nowhere, or, um, in Japan, I was so excited to go to Japan, and then we were in this horrible hotel, like off the airport. And you know, so I mean, they could definitely improve some of that. So that was some of the reason where, we've traveled from, I don't know, I mean, we've been to probably 15 different countries with the IPF. Um, and I'm super proud of my accomplishments with them and stuff. But at this point, it's always like, like Bench Worlds was in South Africa. I have no desire to go down there again. Like, um, mostly because it was a 19-hour plane flight, and that was horrible.
My God, that's so long.
Who wants to sit in a plane that long, Um, so, I mean, I've just been enjoying, I think, financially, it's been nicer too, just to do things closer to home. And we've had some nice big events, and they're a lot of fun. So I've just been enjoying that. I do hate that I have 11 IPF titles because it's an odd number.
Nice.
So I don't know.
It would be hilarious to go back just to make it an even
I might though. Just waiting for it to go to a place that I want to go.
number. That's so fun. It it definitely is. I think it gives me mixed feelings, and I think it makes it harder for it. There's an entry point, but I do like it is more cost effective to stay in the states. Like going to Hungary was not the cheapest thing, and it made it hard. And I had to do crowdfunding, and thankfully was able to do it. But if I could stay in my states or stay in the U.S., those flights one are not 19 hours, and
Yeah.
also are much more affordable. And the so far the venues, pretty much all the venues that I've been to with at least the nationals with USAPL have been pretty nice venues.
Yeah, pretty decent. Yeah, I would say so.
Do when did you start jumping on the bench? And
Ah, ha, ha. That was at the Arnold. I want to say it was maybe 2013 or 14. I actually did that because Dennis Cherry he owns SSP Nutrition, but he was like kind of like me in the men's side of things. Like he was breaking all the records. I don't think he ever lost a meet. And he is really like, he has a lot of stage presence. Like when we were there, he walked out in like a boxer's robe and sunglasses. Like he was Sean Noriega and Russell, or he before they were even born. Like he had all this flair, and so he had. broke the world record that day and jumped up on the bench and did that. So then when I did it kind of as like homage to him. And
Oh,
then it just kind of became a thing.
it's like the most hyped thing. I love to hear where it started, but like watching you do it, it's like you just want to like get up there and do it too, you know? It's just
Yeah,
it's so like motivated, it's fun, it adds so much to like the environment at a USAPL meet allows for that, you know? And like
yeah,
it's I think part of it is also Gino. Like when Gino came
yeah.
on, it changed. Oh my gosh, it just
It changed big time.
huge. Like people wanted to go and just take pictures with Gino. Like people were
Yeah,
showing up just to listen to
I
him
was
talk.
Yeah, I was at his very first meet. Speaking of Dennis, Dennis owns a bunch of gyms in New Jersey called the Fitness Factory, and Gino worked out there at the Fitness Factory. And so they had bench nationals in Rockaway, New Jersey, and Dennis was, helping sponsor it. And he's like, I got this guy, you want him to announce? And he did, that was his first announcing. He used to do like bikini contests on the beach and stuff. He didn't know anything about powerlifting, but he was energetic. And everyone was like, we want him back. Because, before that, it was like, you know, Benjamin up, Jen on deck, Dennis in the hole. And that was it. Like, that was all the announcing. There was no nothing else. So, and then he's just kind of become his own character, over time. And he flies every weekend to a different meet, and all he asks for is his expenses paid for. He doesn't get paid to go do these events. He's retired, and he says this is his enjoyment.
Wow.
So yeah, just feed them and fly them in and put them up.
Wow. That's so
Yeah.
cool. That's
Yeah, so
amazing.
we've had him at a few of our North Carolina events. He'll come down here and stay at the house with me, and then he'll go to like my son's baseball game, which we live in like Podunk, North Carolina, and he's there with his skull rings and his pirate hat on, and all the other parents are like, "Who is this guy?" And he's going, "Brody."
It, it's a family, man. It's
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
Well, and the fact that the IPF kicked him out, so it says something about them, I think. And I probably can't stand up on the bench anymore because, you're not allowed to put your feet up on the bench. So
I don't think they will like
there's that.
it. Yeah. It just I've been to a couple meets over the last year and just seeing everybody kind of like shaking hands and giving hugs and like, oh, what are you doing for lunch or what are you gonna do for dinner? I was like, oh, let's all go to whatever. Like
Hmm.
you don't. I feel like you don't have that in like a lot of places. Like it's something that I think all of us need. We're a community based species, right? Like we all need that grouping, and I feel like industry, like the money behind business, sometimes not always can get in the way and it takes away from that community. And I think that the more you get into industry, the unfortunately it kind of pulls you into that way or kind of just it continuously like it'll push you out so that if you don't want a part of it like you stay outside but you don't you're never really involved in the community part and
Hmm.
it's sad.
Yeah,
But it sounds like powerlifting is a good place to be.
it is for sure. If you don't want to be part of the community, it's probably not the spot for you. I
You're kind of
think most people are there.
yeah, I think you're kind of not forced into it, but it's like it's hard not to want to be involved with
Yeah,
it. It's
for sure.
if you have Gino yelling at you like 666 number of the beast, then you're like, oh my, who is this guy? You know, and
Let's
like
go.
it's the best. What do things look like for Jen in the future in like the next 6 to 12 months or so?
Well, I'm gonna do bench nationals in Memphis in August, and then we have Raw nationals. Oh no, that was Phoenix. Sorry, August is Phoenix. Bench or Raw nationals is Memphis, right, in September. And then we have a couple of North Carolina events going on that I'm helping out with, and then the seminars that I've mentioned. Um, yeah, I always stay busy. There's always something going on. But every once in a while, I have like a vacated weekend where I'm like, oh, I'd love to get up to the mountains and just hike and and decompress and just I enjoy nature like a lot. So I love to be out in nature. So I do that as much as I can. But yeah, just I don't know. I don't have anything other than maybe a Trova trip, which I'm excited about, and seminars and lifting and teaching and being a mom.
And being a mom and teaching. I forgot a little bit there. I kind of like lost. You also teach, and you're also a mom and a wife. Like you really do stay very active, and it's part of the. It makes sense why you would say no to things at times. It's like you
Mhm.
got a lot going on.
But I feel like it doesn't feel like work if you're enjoying it, right? And it does help that like with my family, we're all into the lifting, so that helps that we can all do a lot of those things, together. Um, so that's good too.
Definitely is nice. I wanted to ask a little bit about what you do for recovery.
Ah, um, Not a whole lot, honestly. I mean, we lift 4 days a week, probably an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on how many people show up for the workout that day, because our neighbors and our friends come work out with us. So there's
Oh my,
usually four, five, six of us down there. So the more there are, the longer it takes, which means you get more rest in between sets.
it's always nice.
Um, but I mean, and so we have Wednesday off and Saturday and Sunday. So usually just I like just to be active on my days off, whether we live on the lake down here, so paddle boarding or something like that, or hiking up in the mountains. But I mean, I think the rest and recovery is just paying attention to your workouts and making sure that you're not overtraining. I think sleep is hugely important. Like when we get off of this, I'm gonna go take a nap. I take a nap every day. My husband thinks it's hilarious. If you do the hashtag let the champ sleep, there's like 8 zillion pictures of me sleeping anywhere. I love sleep. So I think sleeping is huge important. I get like 8 hours at night and then I get another half hour, partway through the day
Wow,
if I can. And then just nutrition, of
I think I
course.
lost you, Shannon.
I don't eat a lot. I don't eat a lot of processed food. I'm not like crazy about my diet, but I try to eat real food. Is kind of my big thing is veggies and I'm not a great cook, but
If you
I
can
can
hear
cook enough that
me, I just want to let you know I cannot hear you.
oh, uh-oh, not now. What made that change?
Oh man.
Ah, how about now?
There you go. You're back.
That was weird.
Yeah, it was weird. I don't know. Internet just kind of like died.
Anyway, I don't know what I said now.
Uh, we were talking about how much you like to sleep, and I mean, sleep is extremely important, and
Yeah.
um, it's nice. Sleep is good. I'm also probably gonna be taking a nap here pretty soon. I woke up and I was like, man, I'm still tired. I don't really know. Like, oh, this
I
is
do one
terrible.
every
So we're
day,
also gonna go
every
now.
single day if I can. As I was saying, my husband's got this
Yeah,
hashtag called Let the Champ Sleep. Did I tell you that?
Yeah.
And so lots of pictures. But I think nutrition too. Like I don't eat out a lot. I don't eat any fast food, and I just try to eat real food. I'm not a great cook, but I can get by. So I think too, like if you really look at your nutrition and what you're putting in your body, I think that has a huge impact on your recovery.
That's a very good point, and I think one that is easily overlooked. Maybe by I think elite level athletes typically are more conscious of what they are putting in their bodies, but it can get you can get away. If there's so much going on, and things sometimes are easier just to go and grab something from anywhere off the street or whatever than just taking the time to have prepped, right?
Yeah, I just try to, when I'm making things, I just try to make things in excess. So I always have extra things to eat. I think like a lot of the packaged food and stuff, I just think there's such bad stuff in there. And I don't think you realize it until you go off it for a while. And now, like, if I were to eat something packaged, it tastes plasticky. I feel like I can taste all the chemicals in it. It doesn't taste good. So that's been sort of a big change for me in just the last few years. I'm not like vegan or anything like that. I just try to eat real food.
It's important. Well, Jen, I seems like our internet's kind of I can't see you anymore. So, but
Oh,
what do I think? Let's give some plugs, and then I guess we can go ahead and call it. I'd love to continue to chat. I'm really glad that we met. Got to actually put a face to the name, and I think again, thank you for the time. But it just sounds like you're doing a lot of really cool things, just in I think for the sport, but then just ultimately for your own life. And it makes me really happy to hear and see, and um, it's motivating, and I think it's nice. I feel like I always boil things down to it's just, and
it's,
it
and
is
that's
it's just
okay.
nice and to hear.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's good. Yeah. Well, give me some plugs if you don't mind. Where can people find you? Where can they get the app and all those good things?
Yeah. Well, the app's just a website. It's thompsonsgym.programs.app. I have it in all my links. Instagram's Jen Thompson 132. I have a TikTok. It's Jen Thompson 132. Because back when I first started, 132 pounds was my weight class before they started changing them all. Um, and then I have a YouTube, 132 pounds of power. I'm always putting like all sorts of little bench tutorials and tips and stuff like that on there. So that's actually a really great place if you just want to. I started a new quick bench tips series. So if you want to just like get a couple little cues, you can go there. Um, I have a website, 132 pounds of power, Facebook, all of it. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Gosh, I love it. Well, again, thank you so much, and I hope to see you at the next nationals or something similar, and hopefully have you back on in the future. I mean, this was awesome. I really enjoyed it. So thank you.
Well, I enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much.